So normally I would wait a little longer before starting, but I am excited. I say, with the most monotoned voice possible. No, I'm stoked. I'm happy y'all are here. Hello, Gooey. Hello, friend. I'm not gonna stay on face cam for very long. We're gonna switch to the Dumbo PNG tuber icon that I have, but I did just need to show off this giant fucking dinosaur that Emmy got me. Like, look at how big this baby is. Look at this baby. He's just, I would say, a little guy. It's perfect, though. It's a giant baby. A giant little guy. But I love him, and he's perfect. And I will just be leaning on my desk like this while snuggling him the whole time we play this video game. But that's the only reason I needed to pop in and show off my face for a minute. I do plan on going back to, like, this whole thing at some point. But we've just been kinda, I don't know, just kind of been, you know? Shrimp check. I mean, I can do that. Rude. Well, I can at least do this. I can de-shrimp and also still snuggle. But yeah, thank you for that. It's good to get good posture going. But no, I think most people know at this point, I've been very busy with work and housing situations, and it's been a lot, and has kind of taken up most of my time and attention. So, you know, like, streaming has kind of had to take a backseat for a little while, which sucks. Because I was really enjoying streaming this game and Slitterhead and everything. I'm still not entirely sure that I'll be able to do anything during the weekdays, and weekends obviously are going to be very, like, spotty. But the occasional stream during the month of December can happen, maybe, sometimes. But it probably won't be until, like, you know, the start of the year that we actually get back into like a vaguely regular schedule. But we'll see. I'll try and keep everyone posted. Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely, I guess you're right. My having to take a break also worked out for you, because you had to take a break. This is one reason why when I do stream, I do like upload it to YouTube and stuff. So like even if you miss the VODs on Twitch, which they should be up for like 3 months, I think, because I've got Prime again. Even if you miss those, they will be up on YouTube eventually, so that you can catch up if you want to. Only if you want to, though. But yeah, little goody two shoes. I don't really remember what happened last time. The last thing I remember was like we got mobbed by some crows. That might actually be the very last thing that we did. Yeah, we went on some dates, we met some cute lesbians, there were weird ghosts all over the places, there were bewitched horses, they were what, like hag-ridden, is that what it was called? It's all coming back to me. The old man Jenkins was being a piss baby, I don't think that was his name, but you know the guy, you know who I'm talking about, Yokin? Was that his name? Yeah, damn you, old man Jenkins. But TLDR, we now have a witch girlfriend who's trying to like, who's encouraging us to give him gifts. That's him with a capital H. And I'm a little skeptical about that because I think that might mean that she needs to die. And our good friend Leb keeps giving us the food because we're starving and having a hard time existing. Muffy, Miffy, Mizzy, her, that lady is horrible and around. Who else? Yeah, I hate Miffy. I wanted Muffy? Genuinely cannot remember her name. Oh well. Mildred, Muffet, Middling, I don't know. That girl, hate her, don't like her. And then we keep having weird dreams. That's pretty much all you need to know. I think yeah. It's okay, our gal we play as doesn't remember either. It's true. That is true. But yeah, so I mean, that's the general catch-up. We'll figure it out as we go. We keep having weird dreams. The last weird dream we had was us running in the caves from moths, like weird, like butterfly moth things. And there was that room in the old windmill where we found a note about some like ritual, I think it was. Yeah, and in our dream, our head was in a basket. You know, as one does. Sometimes you get tired of carrying it on your neck, and you just gotta pop that off and put it in a basket. You know how it goes. But yeah, that's that. So I think with that, I'm gonna make my face go away, and we're back. We're back with our little Dumbo, who I should probably. Hold on a second. You're gonna see all my... Oh god, horrible. Okay, I was gonna change which mic it was picking up from, but it's fine. Or audio source, but it's okay. This is fine. You'll see me wiggle anytime my dad types. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Bottom right? Is that where... Oh, oh, that's the wrong one. That's the one. That's a Waluigi jump scare for ya. had to put that one in place because Slitterhead got a little spicy. This is what we were looking for? Definitely. This is 100% what we were looking for. No, these pixels are not too spicy yet. I need to remember what all the controls are and also what's going on. Arrow keys to move, shift to run, control for lantern, Z to select. Okay. Grape juice. Our sanity is not doing great. Let's eat some snacks. Let's drink some juice. I vaguely remember that Mumsibzy, that girl, wanted the Lebkuchen, right? That's why we had it. I remember it being expensive and me getting mad about it for some reason. I think that was the reason. So I am gonna drink this juice. That did nothing for my sanity. Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, blackmailing girl. I want to say that she wanted the Lebkuchen. The cookies. The funny little cookies. I was trying to see what our goal is. Which might be in our map, actually. Yeah, find our way home. And we need to, later on, we need to meet Roz and Marine at the viewpoint. It doesn't show Leb being out, so I assume we already got the food from her. That feels like a thing that I would have done to set us up well for this next time, but past me is also a dick sometimes. Elise, are you okay?
Elise!
This is bad. This is very bad. Is it? Oh, wait, we literally just got cursed, didn't we? Had it not been for Lebkuchen, those folks would have found out about everything. About the woods, about what I did. Yeah, she's having a bad time. That's right, I best get to that Crow's Grove. The Testament. Are you okay? The fact that I could hear that past my headphones, oh my god. The Testament, they have the tender flesh. I should...
Elise! Rose and Marine? Are you alright, Elise?
What's wrong, Elise? I don't know where to start, Rosemarine. I'm so tired. Girl, mood. Granted, I don't have, like, an entire village, like, coming at me or anything like that, but, you know, I work support. It's basically the same thing. It's this rotten pigsty of a town. Okay, well, I wouldn't say that about my job, but... That's fair. Happy zigzagooning. I'm just happy you're here. In whatever capacity that looks like.
Elise.
Oh. I saw one of Mr. Eugene's horses on the way home, Rosemarine. It was dead, but it was riddled with crows and...
I'm sorry,
I don't understand, Elise. You should tell...
No.
More importantly, Rosemarine, there was a golden crow. He said he's got a testament. Oh, Elise! A testament! This is too much for me, Rosemarine.
But...
What else did he say, Elise? I'm so tired. Huh? I ran back to town to tell everyone about the horse, and they humiliated me, Rosemarine. Elise. Each and every day, I'm treated as though I'm some wretch. No matter what I do or say, I'm always what? This wish of mine, Rosemarine. Can I truly trust him to grant it?
Yes.
If you devote yourself to him and do his bidding, you're already aware of the sacrifices you'll have to make, but it's... I would sacrifice all of Kayshurrr if I had to, Rosemarine. Don't promise that. That's a bad idea. I can't stay another day in this town. I have no choice but to find him.
Oh, but
Take me with you, Elise. Huh? You're going there again tonight, aren't you? To the woods? Alright. I'll let you know when I'm ready. Ruh-roh. Also, general heads up, I am waiting for messages about food getting delivered. because I had to order some groceries. So you might hear my phone, and if you do, that's why. Okay, is there anything else that we need to do before we go? Oh, this music, though. So much for St. Walpurga's protection. I ought to have thrown you out long ago, lassie. Palms joined in prayer. The wooden statue of St. Walpurga grants protection to the faithful. Is it Walpurga or Valpurga? Probably Valpurga, right? With a V? There's a V? I mean, there's not much else we need to do. You look nervous, Lise. That's because I am Rosmarine. We can talk about it. I can try and... No, it's alright. I don't want to think about it. Let's go, Rosmarine.
Yes.
Alright. Also, hold up. Grip it and rip it. Ooh, fudge. I hope it is done, and I hope it's delicious. Keep close to me, Rosmarine. Lord knows what we're gonna find.
Oh, but
You still haven't told me about last evening's. Whatever happens, Rosmarine, promise me you'll keep close to me.
Of course.
We could even hold hands or something, I don't know.
Are you alright?
Is everything alright? Ooh. I'm excited for you for the fudge. For you to have the fudge, I should say. Come, let's go. Come! So I've been watching Star Trek The Next Generation, because I caved and got a Paramount Plus subscription. Whatever. It reminded me of this very silly video compilation I saw ages ago of just like every single time Jean-Luc Picard just says, come! And it's great and hilarious. And please, dear God, don't choke on your drink. I'm so sorry, Dad. It's fine.
Delayed reaction to the earplugs. Heard that now. Oh. Go on.
It's great. It's just, it's like a 20-minute video of him just going, come.
Apologies.
So, you know. Yeah, I'll try to find it and I'll post it. I'll post it so everyone can have that for reasons that definitely aren't, you know, sketchy or anything. That being said, it has been very delightful watching Next Gen, like, as a grown-ass adult, so I actually know what the fuck is happening. As opposed to just being a kid and being like, wow, that's cool! This is where it happened, Rosmarine. Elise, look! Are those horseshoes? Those are horseshoes. There's so many, too. How many horses are kicking their shoes off over here? These weren't here earlier, Rosmarine. Doesn't make any sense. Is the tender flesh actually haunts? There are feathers scattered about, too. Are these from the crows you said you saw? I don't know what to make of this, Rosmarine. Come, Elise. We have no choice but to see for ourselves. Wow. Rosmarine over here is just a fucking badass, unafraid of anything. There's 4 for each horse, and you've already seen about 2. So it's a party, is what you're saying. A bunch of horses went into the forest to have a party.
Rosmarine?
Rosmarine? Rosmarine? This is why she needed to hold my hand. Silly lass, she must have wandered in all by herself. Had to take their shoes off. Shoes? In my Eurasian forest? I don't think so.
Rosmarine!
Not to yuck on anyone's yum. Not that that's a yum. I'm very much please don't wear shoes in my house kind of a person. I work hard to keep my house clean. I don't need the outside inside. I mean, I too just hate wearing shoes. The only shoes that I like can tolerate are my Doc Martens. Oh, that's the wrong button. I'm not allowed to run. What is this? Hans. Oh, okay. But also, I hate non-carpeted floors. As I have gotten older, have gotten better about wearing socks all the time. So, like, not that I didn't wear socks as a kid, but, like, it was, like, very much a sensory issue for me as a kid. But now there are, like, lots of socks that don't have, like, the seam at the toes and stuff, which helps significantly. So I'm very much, like, a sock and or loose slipper kind of person. You know, like, just socks alone, so you wear, like, wool socks and slipper socks? I mean, I'm here for that. I get that. But yeah, I'm very much like, nope, outside shoes are for outside. Do not wear shoes in my house. Also, don't wear shoes. Where in the Lord's name did she go? I best carry on, I suppose. There's no going back. I'm here for whatever way you need to keep your feet comfy and cozy. But also no shoes. None shoes. Oh, what are we looking at? What are you looking at? Pleasant surprise! Pleasant surprise! How pleasant it is to see you here, lass. Thought you were the ones that invited me, Crow. Not every lass who gets these shoes winds up here. There have been others? Yeah, no shit, ma'am! Please, who do you think those golden girls we met are? They're not just our friends. Or new friends, I should say. Thank you for being a friend. You're not special. You're not special. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, Crow. Asshole. Friends is questionable at best. Okay, well, the Golden Girls are not actively antagonistic towards us. At least thus far. Therefore, friend. Hey, girlfriend. Speaking of. Also a red ribbon. Rosemarine!
For goodness sake.
What were you thinking wandering off like that?
I'm sorry.
I told you to stay close to me. I got a little distracted is all.
Huh?
This isn't the time or place to get distracted, Rosemarine. We don't know what could be out, or could be in these woods. Excuse me. Oh, what is her face doing?
Hurry it up!
Come now, we can't sit around all night. Are you okay? Can we talk? This is such a bizarre place. It's so different from last night, too. Their influence is rather noticeable, isn't it? Whose influence? His? No, the Crow's, you goober. Of course. Who's else? Who's else? Who else? I suppose. Oh wait, this is a safe spot, isn't it? Okay. I don't want girlfriend to be sad. But I also need her to not run away from me. You know, it's a little sketchy around here. Can I touch this? No! Okay, that pushes us back. Good to know. Crow! Ring of... Cool. That's how you say that, by the way.
What is this?
A ring? That's that Crow's! What did you say, Rosemarine? I'm worried about Rosemarine. Oh! My eye! Oh, okay. You've come! I was gonna say, the, word, the is the same as it is on the Crow's chest. So that's its name. I mean, I know she's a witch, but I'm concerned is all. You know? And now she's scared, so I'm even more concerned. Look who it is. Look who it is. You've brought me such good company, too.
Out with it!
What are you wittering on about, you wretch? You've done well in coming here, lassie. So you'd best give me what you promised, Crow. What he promised? The testament! The testament! Where is it, Crow? Come a little further into my grove, lass. Why, you little... I didn't hear about this. Show it to me. Show it to me. What is she to show you, Crow?
Rose and Marine?
Oh no, are we doing a murder? High stars. It's a good emote. We need to do some more Waluigi nonsense at some point. But how's it going? How are you doing? By Waluigi nonsense, I mean character creator. Waluigi nonsense. You know what I mean. Hey, give me back that ring, you! Show me how far those ruby shoes will take you. All that you desire, lass. It's all so close, yet so far. Yeah, I think Rosin Marina has a feeling what Elise is gonna need to do. Same. I mean, I think she, like, already kind of knew ahead of time, right? Because she was telling us about the testaments and kind of what they meant, right? Waluigi on Sims 5 release. Is there actually going to be a Sims 5? Hold up. Hold up. Is this me finding out that they're releasing a Sims 5? Because I'd do it. You could at least tell me your name, Crow, if you have one. That's a secret. That's a secret. Its name is... as I discussed earlier. Why, you wretched bird? That doesn't answer my... Enough chatting. Enough chatting. Come find me if you'd like to know more. Have we considered just throwing a rock at this bird? Come find me. I suppose we ought to go find him. Oh no. What's gotten into you, Rosmarine? You're not yourself. What do you mean? Oh, to hell with it. Let's go find that wretched bird. Have I ever tried to hit a bird with a rock? Well, no, because I'm not an asshole. But it can't be that hard, right? I mean, she could at least chuck a rock at it, just to let it know that we're serious, even if she doesn't hit it. Oh! Okay, well, before we go in there... Are we gonna talk about that? That ring we found. Did you say it could go in here, Rosamarine? The Sims 5... Sims 5 development is being called Project Renee for some reason. I have questions. He did steal it from us after all. Rather clever, isn't she? Some of these look like they have nests inside. Several oddly shaped yet neatly carved ceramic pots and vases rest on the ground. Vases. Sounds weird. More matches. Hooray. You love to see it. Sorry, why can't I just push this? Why can't I push this flower? No, the music in this game is so good. Love. Okay, nothing in there. That's where we save. And while things have occurred, not enough to really warrant a new save. I don't think we should trust that crow. Go get foods. Alright, out with it, Rosmarine. You haven't been yourself since we got here. I'm a little nervous is all. So am I, but you're... It's best we don't get distracted now. And maybe she truly is just nervous, but she's rather cold, isn't she? Yeah, well, to be fair, you were kind of an asshole to her as well. That crow is toying with me. That's what he's doing. Can't say I'm fond of him either. It's best we hurry out of these woods. You seem to know quite a bit about all this. I tend to know a great deal about things, don't I? It doesn't feel right at all. She won't even say my name. Oh, that is a good point. No, I didn't mean to turn that off. I meant to come in here and eat more bread. Are you shitting me? Okay. I understand that I have to be next to the trees that are not shaking. It's just a little hard to do so. This one? Acorn? What does that do? Items, please. Pear or acorns, each still clinging to their cupules? Couples? I would like to eat that. just for health. Excuse? How? Okay. We might need to start this section over, because, oh boy. We're having a bad time.
For goodness
I
sake!
thought we wouldn't see the end of it. Come now, Rosmarine. Let's get out of here. I'm not sure it's that easy. Huh? No, it's nothing. Let's go. Suspicious. Alright, well, we got the ring of again. So that's cool. Is there any, like, healing items or something over there? Ought to find that wretched crow and get that ring back. Yeah. We already did. That only feeds me. That does not heal me. That heals, though. There we go. That at least gets that noise to stop. Use. Okay. He will be pleased. He will be pleased.
Hurry it up!
Where's the testament? Come further, lass. Come further.
For goodness sake!
Oh, I've had it with you. Either tell me where to find it or get out of my sight. It's best you don't speak to him like that.
Rose and Marine?
All the answers you seek lie deeper within these woods, lassie. I don't think we should go further into the woods. Chocolate pretzels. Delicious. Will you give me the tender flesh, then? That's how you should ask for the fudge. Just go down there and be like, will you give me the tender flesh? Because that's what fudge is, right? Meet me in the wheat field. Show me your resolution. The wheat field? You have my word. You have my word. I trust Crow. No, wretched bird's playing with me. A wheat field.
Rose and Marine?
It's nothing. We ought to go after him. She's not nervous. She's hiding something. I trust girlfriend. Okay, hold up. Deal with Rosmarine later. Okay, where does this go? I got questions. Do we go the haunt path? So it's true. So it's true. Never get used to you feathered rats screeching. She's here! She's here! It's best we move along. She brought the witch! She brought the witch!
You know,
What are they going on about now, Rosmarine? You're in our lair, witch. You have no hand in this grove.
Out with it!
You've got the wrong lass, crows. Now let us through. I suppose it's because of the hat. You're in our lair. The lair of Lord... The lair of Lord... Okay, I can't keep doing that. Do you know who that is, Rosmarine? You know him too. He's our merciful Marquis. That Golden Crow's name? It's best we move along now. Okay, but that's the way they want us to go, so what's over here? See, you've taken the Marquise's invitation. It's rather rude to arrive in such good company, however. To whom? You know who. You know who. To him. That's who the good company is for, not for his Marquis. You have to understand what this Marquis nonsense is about. Not nonsense! Oh, shush, you feathered rat. Okay, I'm glad we came over here. How I loathe you, naive sheep, following his blissful word into this moonless hellfire of ours. What are you? We all fed his gluttony, one after the other. Our sins unearthed, made into a spectacle for all to see. Who is he? Your fate as one of us is sealed, you foolish girl. What in the Lord's name is she wittering on about? Okay, well... We're not doing too hot, are we? I'm sorry. What for, Rosmarine? I'm aware I'm a little antsy, but this place makes me nervous, you see. That's alright, I suppose. Not too pleased to be here either, but... Can't tell her I was hoping she'd be a little more supportive. I'm not even certain what I was expecting by bringing her here. Is everything alright? It's best we stick together, Rosmarine. I did party talk A to see if she would, like, say anything about the Golden Girls. But also just because I wanted to know what she was saying. It doesn't look like she wants to say anything, though. Unless... I've been meaning to tell you. What is it, Rosmarine? It's best you don't trust anyone you meet here. Or even anything you see in these woods. Why is that? This truly is the path to reach your dreams. I wouldn't lie to you about such a thing, but I ought to say, this might take more from you than you're anticipating. Why are you telling me this now, Rosmarine? Because she's the good company, that's why. Might take more from me than I anticipate. Well, if we kill our girlfriend, that's gonna be tragic, but such is life. Sometimes you gotta crack a girlfriend to make your dreams come true, I guess. Is there anything over here? Oh, wait, what's over here? You've met them! You've met them! You're mocking me, you. So are they those wretched blackbirds? All of them his despicable vassals? What are you talking about? His faithful crow. Don't trust him, regardless of how friendly he appears. As if I trust that feathered rat. Hearty soup! Does that increase my sanity? Oh, don't turn that off. No, but it does heal health, which I do kind of need. But I am gonna lose my mind. I think that's just kind of an unfortunate truth at this point. We go around the corner. No! Don't touch me! Okay. Oop. An offering! An offering! What are you going on about, Crow? She the one? The offering? Don't recall ever promising you lot anything. It's best we move along. It's a shame she doesn't have much meat on her bones. You don't mean... The offering! The offering! I'm trying to look for items, but at the same time... I see it. Also just trying not to get got? Just matches. Fuck! Oh, shit! There's a lot going on, Fruity. How are you doing, though? Eager to meet him! Eager to meet him! Goodness sake. These crows truly enjoy mocking us, don't they? You'll enjoy his company, I'm certain. Why would you say such a thing? Lord does. It's no wonder he does, Crow. How do you know that, Rosemarine? She's the witch! The witch! Oh, for goodness sake. Hung out with Sylvia and Oach all day. Nice! Glad you all had a good time. Why does I have to listen to this nonsense everywhere I go? Come, Rosemarine. I've had enough of this foolery. Oh, shit. This is a dead end. I don't want to be here. Fuck. I can sell that for fool. Not foolery not belonging to Tom. I thought he had, I thought he owned all foolery. Okay, where the fuck am I going? Shit! Fuck! Ah, no! Hold on! Ah! Okay, okay. We're doing great. Acorn only heals health, which I will still eat. Yeah, past strats. You just take your hand off the keys for a second and then prime them and start hitting the direction you want to go and then unpause. We got this. Eat that acorn. More acorns, great. Look, I love all the health that we're getting. But health is not currently the issue. Okay. Okay, we've gone through. It's probably not stopped the laughing, though, because we are still slowly going insane. Wait, you... He sure likes to be chased around, huh? Come now, let's go before he decides to fly away again. Well... only for now, and now it's back. Yeah, like I said, like as soon as we aren't in a cutscene anymore, the laughing is gonna resume. Which it has. Fuck! It's fine. It's fine! I just wanna... It's because my sanity is really low, which I need, like, juice for, but I had to spend all my money on those fucking cookies for the girl who's, like, blackmailing me. What's a stone slab? But it's not particularly helpful to any of us. Oh wait, can I put the slab here? Return the slab! Slab? Slab. Okay, but is there... Crow slate? What's the stone slab? Wait, give me this. Juice! Okay, hold on, hold on. We can fix this. Okay, there we go. No more horrible laughing. Whew, boy. I was really hoping that there would be some juice around here. And there was, and it's great. Fancy seeing you. Still don't understand what you want from me, Crow. Yeah. only just, though. Your resolve. Oh, I have plenty of that. Don't provoke him. Provoke me. Provoke me! Follow your instinct, lass. Pay no heed to this creature you've brought along. That's not a creature, that's my girlfriend. She's no creature, you wretch. Yet, since you insist... What did you do to those horses? Taken them from Kayshurrr, haven't you? Far from the truth. Far from the truth. Oh, spare me. That old geezer's offering wasn't meant for me, Lord. It was meant for her. What are you? An offering. An offering. That old geezer. Who are you talking about, Crow? That witch didn't ride those horses all by herself, lass. Not certain I follow, Crow. Pity you didn't get to enjoy it. Pity you didn't get to enjoy it. What's this wretch talking about, Rosmarine? Find me in the wheat field. In the wheat field! It's either... I mean, like, she's saying it's like an offering... The Crow is saying it was an offering for like, the old geezer, right? I wonder if, rather than that being Old Man Jenkins, it's the witch that we met? Like the old witch? Which possibly could be like Rosmarine, maybe? Question mark? Wait, I still have... He's not one to sit and chat, is he? Old Witch Jenkins! I suppose not. Come, Rosmarine. We'd best get going. Still plenty of questions, but best keep them to myself for now. Okay. Party talk. Suppose we don't stay here much longer. What do you mean, Rosmarine? I don't think it's good to get close to that crow. Suppose not. Ugh. I'm only coming back down here. I know that there was a space for us to, like, use the slab up above. I wanted to see if this was gonna do anything, and it doesn't really look like... Seems to be something missing. Is this the way that I'm supposed to go eventually, maybe? I'm gonna hold on to this for right now. Wait, no! Did this one have 2 gates? No, but I can see a place for a slab over there, but that might be... Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, what are you thinking? What's your hypothesis? I think Old Man Jenkins did that to the horses as a way to appease the witch, and is blaming everything else because, I mean, who would suspect the old man would do that? I can see that being the case. I don't trust Old Man Jenkins. Okay, I probably need the slabs that I just put over there, huh? Ugh. Okay, let's take both of these, I guess. He was also very insistent they were specifically Hagrid, and that is true. He was being kind of a weirdo about it. To an extreme degree. Okay, I am gonna take both of these. Because I might need both to get the third one. Ugh. So let's try this. Oh, I just needed the one. Okay. I made that like way more complicated than necessary, but that's okay. What's the stone slab? No, definitely, because it would be the time that I don't bring any, like, bring all of them with me, that I would need them all, and then I'd have to go back, and just be a whole dang thing. It's not too big of an issue for me to have to put all 3 back in going this way, so still less work in the long run. In a way, I suppose. Okay. Put that one there. Oh yeah, I do have that fish key for the fountain at some point. That's like our next clue for things in the village. Halt there, lass. What is it, Crow? Show it to me. That brooch on your chest. You'd best not. You can see it plenty from where you're perched, wretch. Look how it shines. Come closer, lass. Come closer. Oh, get your own brooch, you greedy crow. Wait, I thought she called him a greedy cow for a second. I want to talk to this golden girl, but I know that's gonna, like, impact my sanity, and I don't have any way to, like, fix that. There's no save points over here, unfortunately. Fuck it, we ball. How long has it been, I wonder? Tell me, how long has it been? Since when? Since you were bamboozled by one of us. Why, you... I think most of them have had red shoes thus far. I'm not like the others. I'm not one to share my sorrows. You'll be joining us soon enough, whether you like it or not. Out of my sight, you. Look at your face. Look at your face. For goodness sake, everything in here is infuriating. Okay, let's hurry on through. The momentary laugh. Oh, okay, hold on a second. Well, I thought pausing was gonna help. I needed to take a dink of water. Yeah, save my progress. Oh god, we've looped through the saves. Progress. Make the laughing stop, even if only for a moment. Impressive, lass.
For goodness sake.
What's gotten into you, Rosmarine? Who's Rosmarine? Ever since we got here, you haven't... Who's Rosmarine? Uh-oh. Wait, Rosmarine! Who's Rosmarine?
I'm losing my wits!
Goodness sake, I can't even hear my own thoughts. You're just in time for the tender flesh, lass. The tender flesh, that's... The testament! The testament! Ah, jeez. My eye! The tender flesh. Wait, don't come any closer. Rather peckish. Rather peckish. I'm telling you to stay away from me. Could eat a horse. Could eat a horse. No, wait. May thy flesh serve him. May thy flesh serve him. Did they just rip my eyeball out? Because I kind of need that. It's the Wheat Testament. Okay.
What
Is this the flesh? My own hair. A part of me. My mortal body. Just like Rosemarine told me. Oh, I must find her. Lord knows what those crows did to her. Okay. Okay, there she is. I'm just gonna take a quick peek around. There are no items. So we'll just get into the next cutscene and call it good.
Rose and Marine!
Taking a screenshot because look at that.
These.
Yeah, I think the whispering is just noise. They're not necessarily saying anything. Can you hear it, Elise? The woodland, my grove. It's aching. What are you saying, Rosemarine? You've lost your wits the moment we got here. Even under their influence, it's still...
Out with it!
I'm serious, Rosemarine, that's enough. Yeah, just ghost stimming. Sometimes, look, even ghosts need to verbally stim, alright? There's nothing wrong with that. It's aching for what is taken from its bosom, Elise. Now that you're here, it's reacting to you.
Rose and Marine?
I still don't understand, Rosemarine. What are you... Can you hear it? Hear what? These roots, the earth. I'm sure this is fine. Oh! Haunts? Haunts with fangs? We'll guide you to your rightful place,
Out with
Elise.
it!
I don't have time for this nonsense. I've done what I came here to do. We ought to leave. To the womb, Elise, where you were conceived. Where you will go to meet your
Rose
fate.
and Marine!
You're not listening. To think he's once more trying to take you away from me. Turned my bosom into this parched wasteland, and yet... This womb of mine still responds to your presence all the same. Rosemarine, excuse me? Ma'am? Hey. Hey girl, what? Hey, what the fuck? Is that allowed?
What is this?
What in the... I'll bring you home, Elise. I'll do everything in my power
Rose and
to...
Marine!
Rosemarine, take my hand!
What in the Lord's name?
What in the... I'll bring you home, Elise. Oh no, she's doing the cute thing with her hat, but she's being creepy about it now. Joke's on you, I like that! Come with me, Rosemarine. We have to get out of here. Whoa! Hi, it's suddenly Bloodborne. Is that horse gonna get drunk and then ask me, like, tell me riddles and say puns? Can we go? Probably should have saved, but... Oh! I just got an achievement. Perish from low health. Okay. I didn't think my health was that low, but... RIP, I guess. Yeah, neighing unintelligibly. You know how it goes. What? Are you wearing lipstick? Love Fred the horse. Okay, let's... Control? No.
For goodness
Alt?
sake.
Oh, that just gets rid of it. Okay, can I just, like, skip? Kinda? We can just hit the button real fast. That's fine.
Wait!
And then we will save this next time. Because, quite frankly, I don't want to hear my girlfriend talk about returning me to the womb. Thanks, but no thanks. Yeah. That is true. It is a good time for ads. Thanks y'all for dealing with those. Okay. Yep. Give me my wheat hair. Let's, do this again.
Rose and Marine!
Okay, there's no way to...
Rose and
Well,
Marine.
welcome back. We're just gonna cut through this real fast. There's the funny tree horse.
Out with it! Rose and Marine! What? Rose and Marine! What in the Lord's name?
Okay. That's a cool horse, though. Okay, that didn't take too long to get through, which is nice. But we will do a save just so we don't have to do it again. Because I have a feeling that I will probably keep dying in this section. I assume that horse touching you is a, like, one-hit kill. Which is unfortunate, but, you know, it is what it is. I am just saving over what we did last because there's not really any way for us to fix that. Oh god. Maybe it was the spikes that I touched though. Oh god. Oh! Oh shit! Okay, no. Spikes do 1 damage. Horse just insta-kills. Understood. Do not pet horse. A horse is mad. A horse will do a bite, and you will have no more fingers. And that sucks for you. Okay, you know what? No, I understand better, and we can do this. As horrible as it is to have all this awful laughing happening around us at the same time, sometimes it's just a thing. Sometimes you just have horrible laughing happening at you. You bitch! Fuck! All of these walls are mean! Horse, please! Rosa Marine, why are you trailing behind me? Okay. It only took us 3 tries. It's not that bad. Dear Lord, is it gone, Rosa Marine? I suppose. What was that? The thing, anyhow. They're preparing for your arrival, it seems. Got scared once you saw Rosa Marine? No, for real. I thought she was gonna get horsed. That's me. I've never seen him this eager, I must say.
What in the Lord's name?
slip away. If I don't hurry, I'll lose you.
Rose and Marine!
What's wrong with you?
Please. Out with it!
She said her name. I've had it. We're leaving this place. Do you have juice? Those are just acorns. Statue of me. Trying to lure you in, is he? Isn't this what you most desire? Glory, luxury, prestige? He's trying to show you that. Let's get out of here, Rosmarine. Okay, well, let's just leave. Oh, shit. The horse, please. Oh, God. It's a bad hunt. My baby!
Marine!
Come quick! You have to get up! Oh! I'll lose you again, my beloved! If I don't hurry, you'll slip away!
In the Lord's name!
You're not Rosmarine. Hold up! It was a Merryweed, whatever that Welsh horse is. Hey, hold up. Is the witch my mom? Is the old witch our mom? I'm gonna make me go away for a minute. What am I to do? I feel so confused. I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going. That wasn't Rosmarine either. What am I getting myself into? I'm so utterly alone. I will just be taking screenshots every so often. You're gonna hear me taking a screenshot and you could cope with it. Let me guide you, Elise. There is the, okay, so just for a moment, there is the possibility that Rosmarine and Old Witch are one and the same. However, I put that out, but I also don't necessarily think that's the case, because Rosmarine was like pretty gung-ho about us meeting this guy, you know, him and all that, whereas this one, this old witch, didn't seem quite as like excited about that. I don't know. I just want Rosmarine back. I don't want to skip. I just wanted to take a screenshot.
漆黒の空を入り沈んだ見られる霊がに生まれ落ちた受け継ぐ宿命に導かれよただただ追っているだけ全てを星座に捧げようよそれはの演舞を刻み道しるべよ新たな夢を見させてよ定めだとしてもいい無べ理想のフレームを包み込む光知らす週末たどり着けるの一歩進んでくただ「
No more laughing. I know I'm doing it bad. Okay. No more laughing, please. When did I get here? Dream I had about Rosmarine. I don't think it was a dream.
Rosemarine!
I have to find her. Oh! My eye! That wretched crow! I gotta find Rosmarine. Yari! The ghosts have got to go away. We gotta get rid of the ghosts. Oh my goodness. Okay, we save. Just real quick.
Hello, sirs.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I don't have any money, so we have to like go do some stuff real quick. Also, I just got a text that food might not be here until like 9, and it's like, please, I just want some fish. Can't leave town without talking to Rosmarine, but I need to make my brain stop screaming, game. It's 2 hours for me. Because it's 7 o'clock right now. I'm in the central time zone. Oh, what am I doing talking to a goat? Just asking goat what's going on. Yeah, having to wait 2 more hours for fish is
Rosemarine!
not great.
Good morning, Elise.
Hey! Have you completely lost your wits, Rosmarine? Last night in the woods, what were you thinking, saying...
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't... You weren't yourself, Rosmarine. What do you mean?
Out with it!
Don't give me that now!
But
No, Elise, I didn't even step foot in the woods. You were with me the entire time, Rosmarine. No, I wasn't. I couldn't follow you into the woods. The trees blocked my path. You went on ahead no matter how much I called for you, and I did wait for you, but you never came back for me. If that wasn't Rosmarine, then who in the Lord's name? It was the old witch.
Are you alright, Elise?
AKA maybe our mom? Is everything alright, Elise? You look a little...
Rosemarine.
Rosmarine, you can talk to me. You don't have to keep it all to yourself.
You know,
I had a dream about you. It was...
Elise.
Oh, Elise. I saw you and your grandmother, and the song was kind of a bop, and, like, it was really cool, and... felt like I was seeing my path to finding you in Kayshurrr.
It's fate, Elise.
Yeah, no, 100% apologize to her right now, Elise. Like, I'm not gonna have Rosemarine slander occurring. Fate, you say? You still don't believe it, do you? Hard not to after last night. Oh, did you get it? Why, the testament, Elise.
Now that you mention
Yes, those crows, it was offered a strand of my own hair, and... Oh, Elise, that's wonderful. All you need to do is prepare it to be eaten. Eaten? Yeah, we have to go to the actual functioning windmill and grind that shit up. Remember, these are gifts you're giving him, Elise. And it's hair.
Yes.
A part of your own mortal body, yes. Yeah, the crows were like, who's Rosemarine? Because that's not who was there. And they were saying, like, oh, she's the witch and stuff. Which, I mean, like, I think we all just kind of, like, assumed that our sweet little baby girl here is also a witch. But, like, you know, it was the actual witch. The one that's been causing problems for us. Gifts for the host. Food, drink, and good company. Food, you say? Tender flesh needs to be food?
Are you alright, Elise?
They called her a creature too, that is true. You look tired, Elise. Is everything alright? feel like I'm losing my wits, Rosmarine. That's because we kind of are. We need to get some grape juice in our body ASAP. Elise. Come now, let's head out to work. Everything's falling into place, Elise. You'll see. Okay, we need to go work immediately. We're doing okay on food. Our health is all right. It's just no. Go back in that house. Me, anytime I have to step foot outside. Okay, sorry. We're gonna run. Yeah. We gotta work with Rosmarine at least once. And it'll take 3 food. And we're good for right now, but just to make absolutely certain that we're okay. That's not what I want. Oh wait, I have that purse that I can sell. I think it's only like 10 coins, but it's at least something, right? Okay. And we do have some minor suspicion on us, but it's just 1 hat out of what? What is that, like 8? 10. So I think we're okay. It's just crows. Oh, there's so many crows.
Is this?
What are these crows doing here?
Are you alright?
Elise? Is everything alright? This can't be good. Best hurry. We run! Get those crows out of here. Oh, but they're all on that hay pile that I want to investigate. What is this? More acorns. Great. Just what I need. Not. I don't need any more acorns. I love this lady. Gretel. I am selling. I could probably sell some acorns, actually. Okay, that's only 10. Those are like 4 apiece. I should just hold on to them, actually. I don't know that 10 is enough to get juice. I have the number 30 stuck in my head, which doesn't actually mean anything. It's been a minute since we've played. But we will run. Well, as soon as the cutscene's over, we'll run to the end and see if we can get some juice.
What in the Lord's name?
What's all this? I don't think I've ever seen so many crows at once. Come, Rosmarine, we must find out what's going on. There's so many. Oh my god. There's too many crows. Hold on, is there... I am trying to keep an eye out for other things that we can sell as well. Wait, what's this? I heard it was a whole ordeal to get this grindstone down the hill. Worn down, rough-looking grindstone sits as the centerpiece of a rusting area. Okay, so it's not important, is what you're telling me. Ooh, it's that symbol. You know the one. Ma'am. Velma. I'm buying. Do you have juice for 10? Yes, you do! Give me that juice. That's 50. Okay. Good to know. My lady. We should still be able to use the mill, I think. But I guess we'll find out. But first... It might be, the grindstone might be from like the old mill. Is the thing. Okay. Okay. We can think. Is it too early? It is too early for us to work at the moment. So really glad that leather purse was enough for us to purchase some juice because, oh boy, that would have been fucking miserable. What's going on here? I'll take good care of it, Father. There's nothing to see here, Elise. Best head back to town. You were the one who first saw these crows, weren't you, Elise? It's not as though you folks believed me when it mattered. Said it last night, and I'll say it again. You're hiding! Matters not Old Yoken, that's his name. Old Man Jenkins is actually Old Yoken. We must focus on the matter at hand. We all had our fill of trouble last night, didn't we? We don't need any more yelling, that's for certain. Now, they didn't steal that much grain, folks. How much did they steal, Mr. Gustav? About a sack in total. We got here in time to prevent the worst. Darn birds were building a nest in the oven. We ought to give it a good scrubbing later. Doesn't seem they're keen on attacking us, at least. Gonna call him Jenkins because it's easier to remember anyway. Valid. Locked it up and trusted Eugene here with the key for now. We appreciate the trust. Of course, especially after all of yesterday's goings-on. Because he was stolen from, or because he has no horses to steal the grain with. Who's to stand guard here, then? Before we get into that, Bernard, there's something I'd like to say. We're all well aware of what happened last night, however. We ought to stick together, folks, now more than ever. You heard the man? Kayshurrr is what we make of it, don't forget that. We ought to head back to the church. Is Apfel feeling better, Father? That's what I'm looking into, Finn. You'd best go with Elise. Go with Elise. Lebkuchen will fill you in, I'm certain. Will do, Mr. Gustav. But I need to grind my hair. I was wondering, Elise. Mr. Bernard said the crows were trying to make a nest in the oven. Suppose it's a cozy little nook. I don't see what's so... So there's an oven in the windmill, right? There's always been an oven in the windmill, Rosmarine. What's your... the tender flesh, Elise? Wouldn't this be a good way to prepare it? Making bread out of it, you say? Maybe you could ask about town if they'd let you in.
Now that you mention
It's rather risky, Rosmarine. I suppose, but can't think of any other way either. Not if I want to find him. It's worth a try, I'd say. Alright, I'll see what I can find out. Okay, but it is time to work. Let's say they snuck in through the roof, Gustav. When did you realize the crows were in the windmill, Mr. Gustav? Or Mr. Ludwig? Excuse me. Heinrich came about to collect some flour this morning. He was the one who gave the alert. So you've locked it up, have you? Just keep those birds out, Elise, or they'll take all our grain. You could draw them away. Maybe if you scattered some grain elsewhere, Mr. Gustav, and the windmill could still be available, and... We've thought about that, Elise. Nobody was in favor of wasting any more grain, lass. I see. We ought to keep a close eye on the windmill, Elise. You can have a word with Eugene, perhaps. No, of course. Dr. Lisbeth in the church? Who the fuck is Lisbeth? Better days will come, lad. When I'm settled in Primmeldorf, God willing. Don't make hasty decisions, Eugene. What is it, Elise? With the key to the windmill, even. Lass is right, Eugene. It's a shame for you to leave. Nothing I can do about that, folks. Hi, Emmy! How's it going? There's nothing left for me here in Kayshurrr, you see. Still, I think everyone would miss you, Mr. Eugene. Please reconsider. No, I've made up my mind. But I do appreciate it, Elise. Even this key. I will only be holding on to it until the evening. Till the evening, Mr. Eugene? Too much responsibility, lass. I'm not too comfortable with it in my pocket, I must admit. Why not hand it over to someone else, then? I can take it to Mr. Gustav if you'd like. That's alright, Elise. There's no better place than Kayshurrr, lad. I don't know, this place kind of seems like a bit of a dump. But what do I know? Yeah, hi, Emmy. Where am I going? What are we trying to do? Okay, we need to ask Eugene about the key later. We'll need to meet Roz and Marina at the viewpoint later, but for now we need to talk to Lisbeth. Great place, bad people. Yeah, unfortunately the people do kind of make the place. Okay, let's go into town. There's too many crows. As someone who likes crows, that's just too many. I'm trying to think if there's like anything else that I want to look at before. Look at this baby. I just want to see if there's like anything else that I want to look at or collect before we continue on, because sometimes there's just like goodies lying around. It was a sleepy baby. Mrs. Odely? Eek! Don't tell me you're hiding from the crows. I'm not going anywhere near those dreadful things. Oh, this is all your fault. How is this our fault, Mrs. Odely? You two are hiding something. I know it. Old Yokin's being taken for a fool, but I know you. Is this because of what I said yesterday, Mrs. Odely? All these awful goings-on. I understand it's frightening, Mrs. Odely, but you can't... Oh, but these crows weren't enough. Even our children are hexed now. What are you? Shoot! Shoot! Leave me be, you! Okay. Also, another sleepy baby. Okay, well, I was hoping that there were going to be some goodies lying around, but it does not seem that that is the case. So... into the church, I guess. We're not gonna save yet. Hello? It's nice to see you, Elise. You've heard about Apfel, I assume? No, I haven't. Apfel was very ill last night, Elise. He had a very high fever. He was delirious. Oh, the poor lad. I can't bear looking at his little hands. What about them, Mrs. Dorothea? It's best you hear it from me, Elise, so you get the real story. Been up all night, Lisbeth. We can tell her. Apfel is fine now, as you can see, but last night he was awoken by him moaning, speaking nonsense. His fever was boiling him alive. I called for Father Hans and brought him to church, but Apfel has never been so ill. I thought I'd lose him. He wasn't all there either. Kept mumbling to himself, and well, I mean, if his fever was high enough, him being delirious is not to be unexpected. But of course, we're gonna blame it on witches. I don't know how, but his hands are injured. It's horrifying, and they were so bloody. It's as if they were pecked at by something. I can't explain it. Please collect yourself, Mrs. Lisbeth. That's right, Mrs. Lisbeth. Take deep breaths. They don't know about science yet. I mean, I guess. First I thought he'd caught the goats' sickness somehow, but it doesn't explain his hands or what happened to my goats. What happened to your goats? Oh, this is my disgrace. It's all right, Mrs. Lisbeth. We're all here for you. It's all right.
You know,
What about the goats? Must have happened while we were... Oh! It must have happened while we were praying for Apfel in church. When Mrs. Lisbeth went to fetch him dry clothes, she happened upon two of her goats lying on the ground. They'd bled to death. Their tongues had been ripped out. I mean, it looks like a little more than just their tongues have been ripped out. It appears that they were decaffeinated. Okay, there we go. Their heads were severed too. I feel like that's the more important thing to note of that situation. Personally. Yet rest assured we'll help you, Mrs. Lisbeth. I shall arrange for a doctor to come as soon as possible. What am I to do with one sick goat, Father? We'll make certain you and the children don't go without, Mrs. Lisbeth. You're welcome to have supper with Finn and I anytime, Lisbeth. Thank you, but I don't have strength, Dorothea. Honestly, it makes sense she'd think of the worst of it last, I guess. Mrs. Dorothea will be looking after Apfel, Mrs. Lisbeth. You'd best go home and rest for the day. Of course, Father. Thank you. Come, I'll walk you and Apfel home.
I'm sorry,
It's awful, Elise. I gotta pay them a visit later. Add that to the things to do. But for now, it's time to okay, we're hungry again. It happens. It's a thing, and it happens. It's one thing after another, isn't it? First things first, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get my hands on that key. It is work time. Romantic date available. Hold up. Is it time to meet with Roz and Marine? Yes. Ugh, fuck. Okay. But it's also wood chopping time. But I have to go on a date with my girlfriend. How they expect me to juggle everything is too much. Also, I like how it was like, oh yeah, it's time to work. And I'm immediately like, nah. Time to go on a date. Can't go on a date, busy chopping wood. That is, I do like the wood chopping mini game. I mean, like, I don't mind it by comparison to some of the other ones. I don't ever want to do the chicken one ever again. None chickens, please. Is the viewpoint this way? I think it is. Yeah! Sorry, there's Flock over there just being cute. None chicken left beef. There she is. I'll spend some time with her.
Fuck. For goodness sake.
You and that goat of yours, Rosemarine. Oh, Elise, there's no need to be jealous. If you gotta lurk, you gotta lurk. I'm not jealous of a goat, you. Isn't she, Flock? I love this goat. How would you like to sleep with him out in the granary, Rosemarine? Oh, I'd have Flock to hold close. I wouldn't be cold at all.
For goodness sake.
Why, you? Flock, don't get so close to the edge. You be careful too, Rosemarine. You can see everything from here, can't you? I suppose. Something's on your mind, Elise. I can tell. Can't even be left to brood in peace, can I? You're going through some changes, that's all. Some changes, you say. Your path will become clearer and clearer. You'll see. You're a little too cheery, aren't you? It almost feels like you're mocking me, Rosemarine. Come now, Elise. Give me your hands. Are we gonna twirl? It'd be cute. Because that'd be cute.
Rosemarine!
Rosemarine, what are you? Oh my god, look at them! Let's dance, Elise. You're going too fast, Rosemarine. We're approaching the full moon, Elise. You know what that means. How would I know such a thing? It's time to celebrate new beginnings.
Here for you, Elise.
Our new beginning. Together.
For goodness sake!
What new beginning, Rosemarine? You're not making sense. Why, you following your dreams, Elise. The fulfillment of my purpose, too. Everything's coming together just the way the stars told me it would.
Rosemarine!
We ought to celebrate our good fortune, Elise. Wait, Rosemarine, you're spinning too fast.
I feel alright, Elise.
Are you alright?
For goodness sake! I'm sorry.
I didn't think... I used to dance with Granny like this every month, and You swung your Granny around like this? Of course! Every month! You're truly... Whether you believe me or not, Elise, let me put it this way. You see that castle in the distance, don't you? Indeed, I see that castle. It sure is in the distance. Yes? It may seem far away from where you stand now, but... The stars are even further away, yet they still guided me to you, didn't they? It's true, you do gotta spin, Grandma. To keep your grandmother fresh and, and not spoiling. Gotta spin her. Are there any other places with pretty views in Kayshurrr? I suppose the windmill's not bad. Will you meet me there tomorrow afternoon then?
I see.
Our new beginning together, she says.
I'm sorry,
Elise? I'll be there, Rosemarine. We'd best head back now.
Yes.
Yes! Heart piece acquired! Girlfriend level increased! Okay, the trouble is, I need to eat some food. I'm gonna eat these cookies, because I think those were for yesterday? But I need them so that I can have, well, I did some science so that I could see, like, how much it increased. And I think I might have told Muffy to, like, kick rocks or whatever. So I could see, like, how much suspicion is raised from her. But I need that so I can work with Rosemarine. So I have enough energy without fucking dying. We need to not explode from work. Okay, what does Muffy want?
Muffy.
It's you!
For goodness
That's
sake.
enough. I'm not giving you one more crumb. But you promised me some Lebkuchen. I promised you nothing, Mercy. Folks already think it's strange, Elise, that you knew about the crows since yesterday.
So,
You know what? Why don't you go ahead? Who's to believe a scrawny little squealer like you anyhow? Old Yoken does, Elise. Mrs. Odalie does too. Oh, do they? What are you telling them then? That I saw you talking to those crows yesterday? There was a golden one too, wasn't there? Why, you? Following you about town is truly so much fun, Elise. I just know you have the Lebkuchen you promised me tucked away somewhere. I don't. They're in my tummy. I ate them because I need them. Do you want an acorn? Yes, leave.
out with it.
Off with you, Mandy. I'm not giving you anything. Now leave. You promised.
That's so.
Why don't you tell them then? But I will. I'll tell them, Elise. But you saw me speaking to some birds, as if they believe you. I'll tell them what you said too.
Really?
Is that so? What did I say then? You said that you... Out of my sight, Molly. Bring me some hearty soup tomorrow, or else... Or else what, you little... Okay, so it only increases by 2. That's not that bad. We can get some hearty soup for tomorrow, probably. I mean, it's probably incredibly expensive. And I will die. Hold on. Oh my god, I can't get around these old people. Hold up. How much is soup? Good soup. I want to know how much soup is. 30? Okay, you know what? That's not that bad. So I'm not too stressed about that. I should be able to get that and some... Oh my god. No, trying to manage everything is very hard. Okay. I don't want to play Kiss the Rat, and I don't want to help with the chickens. But those are my only 2 options, so I guess we play Kiss the Rat. Because fuck chickens. I'm so bad at the chickens, and it's just because there's like, it feels like the delay between the buttons changes every time. It could just be that I'm like, bad. I'll own up to that. I mean, I'm bad at it, but it's because it feels like there's a lot of delay, but it's whatever. We kiss rat. Come play Kiss the Rat with us, Elise. Aren't you sick, Apfel? Not anymore? I've been at home resting all day. Apfel hates Kiss the Rat, but he can watch us. Oh, please, Elise, please. Alright, alright. I don't remember what the controls are. I know I have to, like, change the color of the bat. But I just don't remember which one does what. Hopefully it reminds me. Blue and yellow, okay. Blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow. Blue. I swung too soon. Alright, let's go. It's gonna switch to yellow at any point. I fucked up one of those swings and Rosamarine helped me. Okay. Fuck! Fuck! I started getting confused. It's fine. It's going so fast! Only a B rank? Tragic. I can't continue. I have no money. How much money have you given me? It's like 32, isn't it? Yeah, I think Kayshurrr had enough. Look, Jacob, you messed it up. We almost had her. It's not my fault. You take this, Elise. You deserve it more than Jacob. Barely won. I have to get better at this game. 32! Well, we can afford the soup. What tasks are available? Help Elmo with the apples or Marielle chop some wood. I didn't mind the apple one too much. Okay, that's where the apples are. Apples or wood, y'all? While we're deciding that... we just need monies. Slash, I need stupid lady to stop blackmailing me. That's what I need. Wait, actually, how much are the worsts and what do they do? Health. Hearty soup might be the way to go in general. But I need juice. I need that Walpurga, whatever the fuck, but it's 50. You wood chopping. I know with the wood one, like, my big issue was just I didn't know what the fuck they wanted. But we know now. Let's get some apples. We'll get some food from Leb, so it's not like I can't do that, I'll die. I'd love Rosamarine's help, but I'm gonna fucking die. And since I'm already here, I can't back out and eat some food. All I have is that hearty soup, but it is what it is. It's raining apples. Let's go. Nope. There was no place for me to go. It was just all bad. Heck. Okay. Yeah, no, for real. I need juice for my brain. I have to ace these dang games so I can get brain juice. Stupid anvil. Anvils are not apples. In case anyone was wondering. Only 159? I don't feel like that's a very good score. JK, it's a great score, actually. S rank! I am the apple marquee. Let's go. Possibly. Honestly, don't remember. Leave some apples for the others. Very funny, Mrs. Elma. Thank you for your time, lass. You did well. How much money are you giving me? 60. Why yes? Why do you ask? She's being a little too nice. I can't quite take her seriously. She gave me 60. Okay, so what we're finding out is anytime the Apple game is available, that's the one we want to do. That's the one we want to play. Oh, I know you're hungry. But I need food. So let me... I need to go get... God, no matter what I do, it's just gonna... it all feels like bad purchases. I'm buying one of... Hold on, I'm buying... That goes up by 50. It's not really that much of a difference. The difference just is like the quantity, right? We're gonna buy that. I don't have enough money for any of those, but can I sell anything? Hold on, I just want to see what I've got. You know what? Fuck it. That's not gonna do anything for me, is it? I'll hold on to these acorns for now. I might need them. Okay, and then we'll save the rest for maybe some bread or something, which Leb will give us 2, so we won't necessarily be starving. I'm not gonna be at full though, which is a tad frustrating. Do I need to talk to Eugene now as well? I need to meet Lebkuchen. I need to have dinner. Eugene is not yet. Okay. I'll save after getting food and having dinner with, or just before having dinner with Rosamarine. Oh, wait, Elise. Sir. Sir, you're fucking things up. There you are, lassie. We need to have a word with you, Elise. Is this because I didn't have Rosamarine, like, hang out for every single work day? Because that's just not possible. A word with me, you say? Cruz has been going about town spreading nonsense. Oh, fuck. Such as? Why, saying the crows are nothing to fret about, for instance. She's a kind soul, Mrs. Elma. she isn't afraid of any animals. On the contrary. I see how that might be true, Elise, but still. We're to be wary of such things, not make little of them. I understand, Mrs. Elma. This is dangerous. I ought to make certain I bring Rosamarine with me. Yeah, I'll have to deal with this every day. Okay, but I can't do it every single time. I don't have the kind of money. Okay, well, it didn't increase our suspicion at least, so that's good. Muffy. Please, don't tell my auntie. What in the Lord's name are you doing out here, Melly? I've had it with her, Elise. She always wants me working all day. Perhaps she needs your help, Mindy. She only likes me when I'm working. Why do you think I'm always sneaking about town? I'm not too certain I believe you. I was hoping you'd understand. It's not that I don't, but you won't tell my auntie, will you? Not after what you've just told me, no. Still, you'd best not try her patience too much, you hear? Oh, Elise, since you like me so much, won't you give me some? For goodness sake, Miffy. No. Leave. Okay, Okay, there's Leb, which is great, but I would also like to buy some bread. I could have afforded a pretzel. Oh well. I've got acorns for health if needed. Leb, I'm trying to come over to talk to you. Please, the rocks are in the way. I know, Elise. I haven't said anything yet, have I? You don't have to, Elise. What am I to do with you, Leb? At least tell me you'll get a good night's sleep tonight. If nobody else breaks into a fever, I might. Here's your bread, Elise. 2, bread! What's on your mind, Lebkuchen? Things that would upset you, Elise. I'm not certain you trust me at all. I trust you enough to not ask you about it. Keep coming back to this, Leb. If there's... I meant it, Elise. You don't have to tell me. Whatever it is you can't tell me, I won't cry. You trust me that much, huh? Even if you truly were the witch. Leb! I mean it, Elise. I trust you'll tell me in time. Whenever you're ready. You're truly... tired. For someone who's so attentive to others, Leb, you're not... I'll see you about town tomorrow. For goodness sake. You're so stubborn. Okay, we eat food. Because, oh god, we're starving. And that's all of our food gone. And I will just top off her health. Just for good measure. Elise! Please, come quick! What's the matter, Jacob? It's Apfel! He's gone missing! Uh-oh. What? Oh, please come quick, Elise! I have to go have dinner with my girlfriend! Why does no one understand? Let's go look and look for him. That's right, we can't sit about waiting forever. What's going on here? Apfel's gone missing, Elise. Hopefully lads will find him on their patrol. It will happen upon him, I'm certain. They don't know he's missing, Father. By the time they're back, my poor baby could have... Mama. We all need to remain calm. Calm, Father? My boy is missing. Lord knows if he's alright, let alone if the worst has happened. We all knew those crows were an omen.
Up with it!
Not this again, you old wretch. Ought to have taken the lad to the witch. What a horrible thing to say, old Jochen.
You old geezer!
You truly have no decency, you.
That's enough.
Cannot give in to hysteria, brethren. No, to think the lads went out in search of crows. Crows were a threat, lass. Oh, that's it. I'm gonna look for him myself. Do you want help?
Anyway,
I'll go. Let me be the one to go, Mrs. Lisbeth. It's best we wait for the lads. I can't allow... Oh, will you really, Elise? Now there's a brave lass. Oh, but Father Hans is right. It's dangerous. Leave it to me, Mrs. Lisbeth. Oh, Elise. I do not condone your disobedience, Elise. Well, too bad. Get fucked. I do. I need you to go, Elise, for Angelica's sake as well. Truly, the poor lass can't be without a mother. We can lend a hand with whatever you need, Elise. You'd best make certain you have enough food and matches, dear. Are you giving me food? Because if you do, like, that's cool. I'll be here, Elise. Let me know when you're leaving. Listen, I was ready to do this out of the kindness of my heart, but now that food's involved, fuck yeah, I'll go. Okay, can I go have dinner with Rosa Marine first? Never. I'll never forgo it. I'll say once I'm home. It'll be fine. No. No. Just let me go home. I figure I'm not too pressed about saving just yet, especially since, like, at least thus far, nothing has really happened in town. It's usually not until, like, nighttime, like, after this time period that things start occurring. But let me see if I can find the lady. Because they all mentioned food. and I'm just thinking that, like, maybe they're not actually gonna give me anything. So it's them, right? Certain he's alright, dearie. I can only hope you're right, Mrs. Marielle. Must keep a positive outlook, Mrs. Lisbeth. Thought you didn't condone my disobedience, Father. My duty is to care for my brethren's well-being, Elise. You ought to be aware it is dangerous. Lass couldn't bear the thought, Father. Can't leave Upful roaming the woods all by himself. Lord knows how sick he was yesterday. If that fever were to strike again in those woods, I'll make certain I find him, Mrs. Lisbeth. I appreciate it, Elise, but if you find it's too dangerous... Elise will find him, Lisbeth. You must trust the lass. Here you go, Elise. Please be careful. Ointment? That's not food! Thank you, Mrs. Lisbeth. I'll make certain to send the lads after you when they arrive. Don't wander off too far, you hear? Thank you, Elise. Okay, do you have food? Let me go with you, Elise. You're not going anywhere, Jacob. I'm a man too. Upful needs us, Granny. Elise doesn't need you getting in her way, Jacob. Your mother's right, Jacob. Yeah, ointment I think does health. I wouldn't get in the way, I wouldn't. Can't look after you and myself at the same time, do you understand? But I wouldn't. Must trust Elise, Jacob. I know you're hurting, Jacob, but she's right. Mama. I'll do my best to find him, Jacob. I promise. Alright. Do y'all have food? Oh, Lise, maybe it's best one of us goes with you. I'll be fine, Mrs. Mechtilda? You can always change your mind, Elise. Lebkuchen's right, Elise. Who's to go if I don't? Well, it's a good thing that you volunteered, Elise. You're a capable lass, I'm certain you'll find him. Thank you, Mrs. Ariane. I'm wondering how we didn't notice. It's no use blaming ourselves now, Mrs. Mechtilda. The children told Mrs. Dorothea they lost sight of Apfel. Sometime before nightfall, it seems. Upful was feeling alright. Maybe that... What, Freya? Perhaps he felt ill and didn't want anyone to fret. Oh, don't say such a thing. Upful couldn't have wandered too far, anyhow. It'll be fine. Upful got lost somewhere. I'm certain that's all there is to it. May the Lord be with you, Elise. Okay, so literally just ointment. I was promised food and all I was given was ointment. Puh. Okay, well, let's head off to the woods and we'll save just before going in there. Because there is a safe spot there. Yeah, I was really hoping that there would be food, but we do have some stuff for sanity. No ointment. We needed eatment. It's true. Also, yeah, it's heckin' windy. Okay. Well, we have saved. We're going into the woods. What is that? How do I get there? Oh, it's just acorns. I mean, I say that. I'm not... Despite my whole thing about the ointment, I'm not gonna turn my nose up at food, or at, healing items. It's just not exactly what we need, you know? No, we're here again. Here I am again. How to find Upful and fast. It's time to find the child. We'll probably get through this section and then call it here for tonight. Could probably honestly, like, play longer, but I should consider doing other things, like figuring out what I'm gonna do for food, since I'm starting to think that it might not actually show up. Ooh, what's over here? Welcome back. You don't have to apologize. The crow's trying to tell me something, I suppose. I'm gonna wiggle her a little bit. Sorry. Just thought it was very funny. Ooh! Oh wait, that's literally a spike wall. Do not run into that. Okay. This isn't where I was yesterday, is it? Upful? Upful, can you hear me? I have to find him. Goodness knows what could have happened to him by now. Okay, well, let's drop our sanity down a whole bunch. Ignorance is bliss. Has nobody ever told you that? Plenty of times, I suppose. To be unable to grasp how fortunate you are until it's too late. Charmingly tragic, isn't it? I don't see what's so charming about it. You'll come face to face with it, too. The ruinous grief of your biggest, heaviest regret. What's yours, then? The same as yours. We all share the same penitence. Talking to girls like this is never a very pleasant experience, is it? Pearl Rosary? What does that do? Also... use... expensive looking rosary... Ooh, we can sell it. Okay. Good deal. Also, good to know... Oh. Good to know that I can hold more than 50 sanity. I assume it's 100? Also, mosaic slab. What's this thing? A tile? Oh! Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Acorns? Should I... No, no healing. No more grass horse demons. None. Okay. What is that? Another mosaic slab. Great. Okay, so... back this way. Trying desperately not to touch the horrible spiky walls. It's missing pieces. That's what I said. Thank you very much. So probably 3, right? So we can wiggle it around. Give me this. Okay, there's the last one. Another one. How many of these are there? Or is there a fourth one so I don't have to wiggle them around? More matches. Grape juice. Acorns. I am concerned. They're giving me a lot of healing items. Okay, we're gonna... Can I not go back? Hold up. Hold up. Well... Okay, hold up. I don't necessarily like doing this, but I was only pressing ahead because I wanted to see if there was anything else that I could get, because it seemed like the mosaic was kind of super important. But it's fine. We'll just do it again, and it's fine. This is why we have multiple saves. So if we goof up, then we can try again. That's not an issue. But also, good to know that there's some decent items ahead of us. Oh, you didn't miss much during the ad. It was literally just us wandering through the same place we had gone through before. Also, a reminder to drink your water. It's important. See, I'm not allowed to run in this place, so it is just us walking for what feels like forever. And then a new path opens. Oh, I'm sorry that the bottled water you have is ucky. But also props to you, Fruity, for remembering to drink water. Good job! I didn't do the greatest of it this week because I was busy and I am paying for it now.
What
Okay.
is this?
Well, yeah, just general reminder. Do a hydrate if you get a chance. Okay, so we'll grab that. It's a tile. We'll do this. Okay. Use it. Use the water flavoring. That's how I get through as much water as I do usually. Do a mix. Sometimes it's... Look at that guy! Look at that funny little guy! Sometimes it's plain water, sometimes it's flavored water. Just gotta mix it up and or punctuate how much water I've drunk. It's a thing. Okay, acorns. Where? There was a third one, wasn't there? Or is there just the two? Or was there another one up here? There might have been another up here. Yeah. There it is. Okay. And then there's matches and more acorns. Okay, because I have all these, I am gonna do a save here, which is over us walking into the forest versus the other one, which was us pressing ahead. Okay. So maybe it is just the 3 pieces. Items. Use. Don't quite have time to wonder about this, do I? Should move along and find Upful. She's witless. She's witless! Why, you little... Yeah, it was either that it was going to be a sliding puzzle, or it was going to be... They were gonna, like, give me all the things that I needed, but... This is fine. This one's actually pretty straightforward. Easy peasy. They made that very nice.
What is this?
This is my house. No, it can't be. I'm imagining things. I don't have time for this nonsense. I oughta find Opful. What is this? I really don't have time to bother with this. Did it not? Was it just there to surprise us? Kind of seems like the case. Okay. I was sort of hoping that I'd get a reward for that. But, doesn't seem like it. Okay, let's go ahead and... Yeah, it could have gone real bad, is the thing.
In the Lord's name!
Oh! That's my house. I must be losing my mind. Okay, well this is different. But I couldn't go back. Acorn. So I'm not entirely sure. Wonder what would happen if we just like continued on.
What in the Lord's name?
What is this? My house. My progeny, Elise. Who's there? Come closer, Elise. Delve deeper into my grove. What in the Lord's name? Your fate, Elise. Your genesis is in the tapestry. Okay. Such a foul smell. Thick crimson blood overflows from the cauldron's shattered rim, coating everything in its viscous sheen. This isn't Granny's spindle. Nothing that's in here is real. It can't be. Completely destroyed, the old spindle leans dramatically supported by its last remaining wooden leg. Oh. Sorry, hold on a second. Okay. Well, I guess we look. That woman, she wished for a child of her own? At his doorstep, she kneeled and she prayed, not to me, but to him. Oh! My grove became the vessel, my soil, the babe's mortal body. In my very womb, they celebrated their agreement. My mom is a deer? From him came what I lack, what I failed to lay my hands upon. A human soul to be nurtured in my womb, and later given to her as her daughter. Well, that's our granny, right? Oh, what's that? When in truth, it's me your body belongs to, Elise. I don't belong to nobody. You don't own me.
What is this?
What in the Lord's name? There's something under that tapestry. Well, this is gonna damage my sanity. It's just a lamb. This dough, its insides have been my womb, used for that woman's wish. I was used. What in the Lord's name is going on here? What are these voices trying to tell me? I mean, I can imagine. Hello? You're wearing my brooch still. Huh? What is one to do when the Lord fails them, would you say? Wait, what are you? Is that Granny? Our union was favored by the Lord himself, and yet my inability to bear a child drove a wedge between us. Who are you? So I did what I could. I resorted to his blessing instead. I brought him my beloved in exchange for a baby. Wait, you can't be... All I can say to you, Elise, who's following in my steps, is that this is what my soulmate would have wanted me to do. For my sake, for our union's sake, and for yours as well. Well, that seems like a problem. That lass, it's as if she knew me. Yeah, it's because it's your grandma, Elise. Catch up! I don't know what's going on here, but I can't stay here any longer. I ought to find and save Apfel. You're right, you should. But also... Okay. So we just wouldn't have learned any of that, actually. Alright. Save progress. I'm cool with keeping that, with that progress, so we'll go ahead and save over the other one. And, oh, please, yeah. Do not put your lantern out at the moment, ma'am. We need that. Oh, these aren't walls. Why did I think this was a wall? More acorns. Oh, the poor boy's on the fucking tree. Okay, I'm glad it's not just me.
What in the Lord's name?
Apfel! I thought we were gonna get a cutscene, so I'll just put that back. It's fine. Hold on, I'll get you out of there. Sometimes you just gotta hide in a tree, you know? Let's get you out of there and go home. You're not my girlfriend.
Rose and Marine.
No, that's the witch. Oh god. The woodland. This grove. It's aching. Rosmarine? Your flesh, your blood, your love. All that's rightfully mine. My progeny. This thing's not Rosmarine. I can give you all that you desire. What? My beloved daughter. Oh, there it is.
What in the Lord's name?
What are you? This lass, Rosmarine. Is she the one your heart desires? What? I wonder if you like wooed the others if we'd see them here in place of Rosmarine. They're coming. We'll meet again. She got old lady hand though. Ah, jeez. A vile stench! A vile stench! Tainting our grove.
Out with it!
It's you! The lad's staying here where he is, lassie. The lad's staying.
Hurry it up!
Apfel, come now. Elise. Quickly, Apfel. We have to leave this place. The creatures brought him right into our beaks, lass. We're not about to waste a hearty meal. A hearty meal! My eye! Come, Apfel! Oh, curse you! Dare not defy me. Leave the lad. We'll devour him. I mean, I'm gonna defy him, right? We gotta save the boy.
Alright.
Upful, run. I can't move, Elise. Yeah, okay.
In the Lord's name.
It's mimicking my movements. My legs, they're moving on their own. We have to leave this place, Upful. Elise, I'm scared.
Anyway.
Come, Upful. We have to move. Okay. Oh. I am two guys, not one guy. I know I'm supposed to look for the ones that aren't moving, and there's some that I thought weren't moving, and then they were. Actually. So I need to keep going this way. Keep going down, then this way, then this way. Okay, I see. Just trying to make sure that I wasn't like was vaguely planning ahead. This also makes sense as to why there was a big crack in the middle of this. Elise, my eye! Where are we going? I wonder if like if this is gonna be like how the curse manifests every single time, or if it's gonna do something different each time, because that would be cool. Watch your stop, Upful. We'll find a way. More curse. We're chained again. I understand. But I would like to save. And honestly, I'm kind of okay with saving over. No, we'll keep doing what we were doing. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Oh no. Hold up. He can't go through there. Okay. Can I... Oh my god, trying to keep track of both of them at the same time is miserable. Go this way. And then I can keep Elise in that corner so that I can get Upful through there. And then I can get Elise to go down. Well... Elise, you're kind of being a butthole about all of these things. Okay, alright. We haven't taken that much damage. Where did Upful go? There he is. Okay, shit. I push him that way. I know what I'm trying to accomplish. We're gonna reload. We're gonna do this little section again. No, the problem is that, like, I vaguely know where he is, but I don't know exactly, and I need to, when I'm going down that long section, I need to have him stuck between the walls rather than, like, in that long open section that he can kind of walk through, because that's what ended up happening. Okay, hold up. There we go. It is a little hard to tell where he is in relation to some of these spikes. So yeah, I need to keep him in the walls like that. And then I can put them in this little section. Well, Elise. Okay, we're closer. There we go. Okay, I see. Yeah, Elise is the one getting hurt, not him. That's fine. Save progress. Okay. Elise, I can't see where I'm going. Oh.
Wait!
Don't wander around too much, Upful. Try to follow my voice. Elise, where are you? It's alright. Walk in a straight line. I'll be watching over you. I feel dizzy, Elise. Trust me, Upful. I'm right here.
Together, Elise.
Just run to make sure I don't lose sight of him. Oh. Okay, curse is broken. Time to run. Oh, we're doing this again. Okay. Fuck off, bird! Okay, I didn't realize I was that low on health. I thought I had a heart and a half left. Apparently I only had one heart. Okay, well, we saved. It's fine. And, I'll just heal before we start. Oh, whoops! Hit the wrong button.
Little Goody Two Shoes.
It's fine. Just reload this. That's where we would start anyway. Okay. Let's... Yeah, I have 3 hearts. I didn't realize I was that hurt. Title screen is good. There's also, like, an opening theme song every time I launch the game, which I will show at some point. But it is just very good. Okay, kid. I know, you're having a hard time seeing. It's okay.
All right. Keep it together,
I must
Elise.
run. Oh, that's why it does that. So if you use shift, you can speed up whatever is going on. I was wondering why it, like, glitched out every so often. Good to know. continue. Is he getting there before me? Is that why we're dying? Oh, goodness. Okay. We can use shift. We know now. We have learned. We go here? Oh, I see. Fuck, I'm going the wrong way. Well, nice knowing you, kid. And we heal. And we start running again. Okay. Ugh. Nope, that's not where I need to go. Which way are you going, kid? Okay. Are you alright, Apfel? Elise? I feel dizzy. Wait for me. I'm coming for you. That horrible, Raven is still there. Just stomping around. It's fine. It's fine. He just wants to hang out. He just wants to have some friends, you know? Helpful? Okay. Please. I'm with you now, bud. It'll be alright. Let's go back now. Back to Kayshurrr. Time to go! We got an achievement for saving Apfel! Mama! Aww. Oh, thank heavens you're alright. Mama, Apfel! I'm so scared, Mom. You're alright now, my boy. Oh, Apfel. Thought I'd never see you again. It's alright, my loves. We're together now. What a relief. But Lord, Elise, you really did find him. Wasn't easy, that's for certain.
Atta girl.
Thanks, Gustav. Folks told us all about it. We were about to set off after you. This is a moment to celebrate, folks. Prepare us a feast, Wilma. We're drinking to Elise tonight. Is there gonna be food? How wonderful. I'll get right to it. We can't compromise the festival, Wilma. There's nothing better to celebrate than this, Father. The lad's right, Father. We ought to celebrate. To the inn, folks. To the inn. Please, someone feed me.
Elise,
Elise!
for goodness sake.
What are you doing here, Rosemarine? You weren't coming back, so I came back for you.
Sorry,
I saw you coming back with Apfel? He got lost in the woods. I went to look for him is all. Oh, but is he alright?
you know.
Say, Rosemarine, you've been home this whole time. Haven't you?
Of course.
Yes! I made supper and everything. You were taking so long, I thought... Come, Elise, we ought to celebrate. I'll be right there, Mr. Heinrich. You head on home, Rosemarine.
Yes.
Alright. I won't take too long, alright? I'll be home waiting for you, Elise. Save some room for her for the food she made you. Okay. Wait, this is what I need to do, right? Yeah, join the folks by the inn. Ask Eugene about the key. Also, hold on. Before we do that, though, I kept meaning to check what was going on over here. But it does not look like I can. Okay. Not there, but I was trying to look at the crows. There. There. But there's nothing there for us. Is this the inn? I don't think that's the inn. No, the inn's in town. I know where it is. That's where we get all of our sanity juice. The juice for our head.
Atta girl.
Excuse me. Kayshurrr owes you a great debt, lass. Lord knows what could have happened had it not been for you. I was lucky is all. No, Elise, I owe you an apology. Yeah, you fucking do. What matters is that Upful is safe and sound, Father. Heinrich's right. We have good reason to celebrate. Bottoms up, everyone. To Elise, our bravest lass. To Elise. Oh, you don't have to. Nonsense, lass. This is better than the festival, even. A great deal better indeed. It's our chance to unwind, folks. Why don't you grab some ale and go grab Freya for a dance, Elise? I don't want to dance with Freya. Yes! We're drinking all night long, lads. Well, that seems a mite irresponsible, but hey, as long as everyone's happy. To Elise! Kate couldn't see nothing. And I think, at this point, I think / hope everyone would just chalk it up to him being delirious. There you are, Elise, the girl of the hour. Are you alright, Mr. Eugene? Not you too, Elise. The man has to make the most of what he's got left. Don't tell me ale is all you've got, Mr. Eugene. Why don't you take this, Elise? Bro literally just handed me the key. The key! I won't be needing that where I'm going, that's for certain. Mr. Eugene, you be careful, Elise. These folks aren't to be trusted. Blaming the witch for what happened to my horses. They're all in on it, that's what. Can't very well tell him it really was the witch, can I? Kayshurrr this, Kayshurrr that. You're the only one in town who's not enamored with this rat hole of a town, Elise. I suppose. Get away while you can, lest this place ruins you like it ruined me. Jesus, okay. Calm your tits, man. What's going on over here? Oh, it must have been so frightening, Elise. I'd say it was more frightening for Upfel. It's one thing after another with him, isn't it? How is he, Elise? Seemed a little dazed, if I'm honest. No wonder, the poor lad was lost in the woods for hours. Oh, I'll stop by Mrs. Lisbeth's first thing in the morning. She must be exhausted. Can't let Upfel speak of what he saw in the woods. I'd wager you're as exhausted as Upfel, Elise. I won't stay for too long. We ought to celebrate while we can, then. Why don't we all have some ale? Nah, I'm good, thanks. Is there anything else? I need to craft the tender flesh. Can I do that now? Like, is that an option? Because, like, I'll do it now if I can. Workbenches outside, typically used by the town folks of Kayshurrr to bag newly milled flour. Yeah, let's save our progress. I gotta get in there and get this over with. Oh, you want me to, like, use the key. Okay. Use? Oh, jeez. You've come! You've come! Bruh. The gift, lass. The tender flesh. Come here to do just that, you wretch. Show it to me. Show it to me. Your ardor, your longing for that wish of yours.
This is ridiculous!
I've already been to your grove. I've cleared your trial. What else is it you want from me? Your commitment. Show it to me, lassie. Your commitment. Okay, bro, chill. Oh, shit! Chop and kick. Chop, kick, it's all in the mind! I was gonna say, what's the other option? And I see what it is. Oh god, the music! Shit! I did it bad. Yes, continue. I'm glad I saved before going into the mill. I can see them being practice. Like the work jobs being practice for this, but also I need to know what the things look like ahead of time. Which I was not necessarily given the heads up on, but that's okay.
This is ridiculous!
There are more than 3 jobs, though, so which ones we get is... who knows? But it's fine. We're ready, let's go. Shit! Okay, there we go. Damn it! Ugh, can we be done now? I got an achievement, so I'm assuming we're done. Great! We got the tender flesh. That crow, it's gone. I'm also hoping that by doing this, this means that the crows will go away and everyone will stop freaking out about them. It's got my hair in it. It'll do, I suppose. It's best to get out of here. The sooner the better. Well, I need to give the key to Gustav now, right? New song? When did I... It's that dream again, but I was in town just now. You again. Didn't you hear me? We'll be late for his banquet if you don't hurry. Banquet? What are you... I love these funny little guys. Hmm? It's morning already? I don't feel like I got any sleep at all. It's best if I go find Rosemarine. Nah, it's best if I go save, because we're gonna call it there for tonight. Goat? I'm begging you, Flock. What's going on out there?
Fuck!
Oh, please stay put, Flock.
Goodness sake.
It's gotten into him.
I'm sorry.
Please. He's throwing a temper tantrum is all. Didn't know goats could do such a thing. I had my hands full with breakfast. I couldn't give him much attention. That's what you get for spoiling him so much, that's what. I know, but I can't resist his sweet little
Goodness
hops.
sake.
You're truly... Are you feeling better today, Elise? You still haven't told me about what happened. Can't tell her about the full extent of it, can I? Not about what I saw in the woods or about her.
I'm sorry,
Are you listening, Elise?
Are you?
You were telling me about the woods.
Now that you mention
Phil got lost in the woods, that's all. I went in there to rescue him, I suppose. You're not telling me the whole truth, are you?
Elise,
Elise,
you know,
there's someone in those woods, Rosemarine. I don't know who they are or what they want from me, but I felt their presence there since Monday.
Oh,
Someone in the woodland, you say? I'm certain they hurt Apfel or lured him in, even. Have you seen that old hag again, Elise? The one who told you about him in the testaments? I haven't seen that old hag since then, but that Rosemarine I met in the woods, I don't know what to make of any of this, do I?
sorry,
Elise? Come, Rosemarine, we should move along.
but
Oh, it's best you go ahead without me, Elise. I think I'd best find Flock. I'll be right there with you. Alright. Woo! Alright, well, let's do a save. Yeah, we'll save on a new one. Alright, and, we'll do more of this some other time. Possibly tomorrow, we'll see, though. I plan on doing horror movie at noon, but not sure what movie or anything like that. We'll just kind of have to see how I am feeling. But thanks y'all for being here. Let me see. Is anyone online to do a raid to? There is Nimbly or Hugh Chu. It looks like Chu is doing some Dead by Daylight and Nimbly is doing some Infinity Nikki. We'll probably go say hi to Chu. Because it's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've said hi to Nimbly as well, but yeah. Let's pop over here so I can see what the heck is going on. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here and hanging out, and just being delights as a whole. I have also very much missed this game, and I've missed streaming, and I'm just happy to be back at it, even if briefly, because, you know, this time of year sucks nuts. But yeah, thanks y'all, have a good rest of your night, and we'll see ya next time. Bye!